Studies of the diverse royal initiatives show that His Majesty has always been in the forefront of creative information technology applications for national development and charitable purposes. No matter how advanced the technology becomes, the concept of sufficiency economy always makes itself felt.
Starting in 1927, the Princess Mother recorded her children's biographies both through photography and cinematography using her 16mm filming camera. On his return to Thailand at the end of World War II, His Majesty appointed a crew of royal photographers. Expenses incurred in shooting, editing and sound recording involved in the making of the 17 royal movies were shouldered by royal personal funds. At the time when television sets were still unknown in Thailand, the royal movies were screened at movie theatres both in Bangkok and other provinces. Proceeds were allotted for charity's sake, mostly in support of medical and public welfare operations. The objectives of such movies are manifold: to communicate with his subjects, allowing them to see major royal ceremonies, to serve as documentaries on tourism both in Thailand and abroad, and especially provide a source of knowledge about foreign countries, and to promote and raise funds for charitable activities. This went on until 1969, when the country launched its radio and television stations for the first time. Royal activities were broadcast as the court curricula instead. The royal movies have today become, and will in the future be, invaluable historical records, which relay the account of not only the monarchy as an institution, but also of royal development work executed in the interests of the people in all regions of the country. His Majesty's biological background shows that his interest in photography started at a young age. A large number of beautiful photographs taken by him will testify to this. His Majesty has used photography as a means of recording royal-initiated projects. It is a familiar sight to all that on royal visits to either remote areas or the sites of royal-initiated development projects, His Majesty constantly and rapidly takes snapshots of almost every place.
His Majesty explained that raising the camera and then deciding the distance was not good for the photographer's image, in that he would not appear to be professional. So, he chose to set the focus and the shutter speed beforehand. That way, he could put the camera to his eye and snap away.
His Majesty's photography not only testifies to his professionalism and exceptional artistic ability, but also contains critical data on the royal-initiated projects, as well as the people and the development of Thailand ever since the beginning of the reign.
This is สถานีวิทยุอส พระราชวังดุสิต
It has been 50 years since His Majesty utilised another branch of information technology, namely radio broadcasting, as a means of national development. Through Radio Warsaw, His Majesty's own radio station, the public was allowed an easier access to their monarch. New aspects of radio programming launched under His Majesty's initiation, for example, live broadcasts of royal functions and addresses given at different locations, are still practiced to this day. It was Thailand's first ever live broadcast, whereby not only the audience could send in requests for their favourite songs, but also announcements were made to campaign for public donations in times of mass natural disaster or epidemic threat. And it was also the first time ever that experts and specialists could jointly volunteer their service by running a radio programme for public educational purposes, in keeping with His Majesty's policy. Again, expenses on the part of the radio station were taken care of by his personal funds. Radio Warsaw broadcast on AM 1332 kHz and FM 104 MHz daily, except on Mondays. Having familiarised himself with the use of his first computer, which was presented to him by Mom Luang Asani Pramod for royal musical undertakings, His Majesty has so far become well versed in computer application technique, as evident in a number of his computer graphic creations in the book Mahashanok, the annual royal blessing on New Year's Eve, and several Thai, English and Devanagari fonts.
His Majesty also created two Thai English fonts, which he named Chitlada and Puping. The latter was achieved during one of his stays at the Royal Puping Palace. Be that as it may, His Majesty's amazing facility for computer application, which illustrated the royal aptitude for invention, became evident in the event of 1999, when the Y2K problem phenomenally caused a global stir, as the computer clock kept ticking away towards the beginning of the year 2000. The confusions ended up causing huge computer system modification expenses to the government sector and public organisations worldwide. On His Majesty's part, it was the make-it-simple solution, as ever. His Majesty said, just reverse the clock, that will end it all. And it worked. The system simply resumed its usual function. Progress on national development can be achieved through the application of both high technology as well as low technology, or the local people's basic approach. Using only the former will not do. Both must go hand in hand. Given His Majesty's early interest in diverse branches of handicraft, of which there are several excellent exhibits, coupled with a solid background in natural sciences during his student days in Switzerland, His Majesty was seriously pondering on the feasibility of applying his knowledge in engineering to agricultural development and the production of alternative energy during World War II. His Majesty's advice was that simplicity was the key word to research and development of agricultural labour-saving mechanical devices, so that farmers knew how to use them as well as locally repair them. You see, in those days, there was hardly any repair shops around. The farmers had to rely on semi-labour-saving machines at best.
At the initial stage, Mon Rajarong Te Pere Kun was entrusted with the assignment of designing agricultural machinery according to His Majesty's initiatives. This included powdered milk making machines and rice hulling machines. All of them were built to benefit Thai farmers because they were designed to suit the agricultural conditions applying in different regions of the country. Best known among them was perhaps the so-called Iron Buffalo, a ploughing tractor which looked simple but had to undergo a series of tests before it was declared suitable and effective for Thailand's muddy paddy fields.
It was not easy to keep the Iron Buffalo afloat on the mud, unlike floating like a boat on water, or it would be stationary on the ground, but just afloat to allow the spiked tyres to have a firm hold on the ground, so the vehicle can propel itself.
Some of the Royal-initiated agricultural machines were modified for greater efficiency by the Royal Irrigation Department, while some have been temporarily shelved. Given the technological progress based on His Majesty's initiations, there is still hope that the latter will one day become as efficient so as to best enhance the state of self-reliance for the country.
Patents on a lot of items invented by His Majesty and Mon Ratchawong Teparit remain to be taken out. Unfortunately, there was no registration for and issuance of intellectual property rights in those days.
Indeed, many patents have so far been issued to those Royal-initiated inventions. One of them was the Chai Patna aerator.
The uniqueness of this patented aerator lies in the methodology of allowing each of its perforated rotating scoops to splash up water and releasing it in a spray. Most of the other aerators patented worldwide do not feature the perforation in the scoops, so water splashes down in mass, not in fountain-like spray. With the more forceful splash and spray of water, better contact between water and air is enhanced, whereby oxygen is allowed to dissolve more quickly into the water. Ours was the world's 9th mechanical aeration device to be patented.
The Royal-initiated Chai Patna aerator operates on simple principle, whereby the rotating perforated water scoops splash up water and release it in a spray, allowing the water to contact with the air. Thus, constant oxygenation is enhanced to polluted water, both at the surface and below. The patented aerator, which is presently widely used, had to undergo several steps of testing, lasting as long as 5 years, both at the actual localities and at the experiment stations.
What mostly happened was that we invented something along the guidelines His Majesty had given and submitted it for royal scrutiny. His Majesty would then comment on its weaknesses. For example, in the case of the Chai Patna aerator, he would point out that the rotation speed was too slow and the intervals between scoops were too long, such that when in motion, the aerator would swing up and down. He would inspire us into finding a better method to correct the weak points. Seeing that we were at our wits' end, he simply said the solution was in the hydrofoil approach. Well, that served to boost the effectiveness all right.
The major innovation which has been issued the patent and recognised worldwide is of course the Royal Rain Project. It started under His Majesty's initiative which enlisted the expertise of Mon Rajarong Te Pere Kun for in-depth research, analysis and experiment.
There were instances where His Majesty's initiatives were met with an argument or negative reaction as far as the project feasibility was concerned. Some individuals or government offices put up a resistance even before a test or experiment could be conducted. But Mon Ratchawong Teparit never said no. His answer when first introduced to a royal initiative was, "I shall try." Research and studies on weather modification were going on in foreign countries at the time. His Majesty introduced documentary sources and constantly gave us royal advice and guidance.
It was one of the most complicated assignments initiated by His Majesty. Besides, they were given early in the reign, namely in 1955, when research and development was faced with budgetary constraints and lack of equipment.
We initially had to resort to the most basic method of opening the plane window and spray scoops of chemicals from there. Then, my father opted for a stainless funnel, which was inserted through the floor of the plane. Team members seated in the rear of the plane would pour chemicals through the funnel. I myself did my part by being trained as a pilot.
Surprisingly, there was a lapse of altogether 52 years from the introduction of the Royal Initiative to the day when the world came to recognise the royal ingenuity involved in the Royal Reign project. But this does not mean that development of the project has been discontinued.
His Majesty referred to the rainmaking method as technology in 1973. Steady progress has so far been achieved through constant study, research and experimentation using advanced techniques to boost its effectiveness. Now, it is possible to precisely control the area and density of rainfall, among others. Advanced research and study was still going on in 1999 and continue to this day.
อะไรอย่างเงี้ยก็พัฒนามาเลยถึงปี2542ยังทรงพัฒนาอยู่เลยปฏิบัติให้พอมีพอกิน
I would like to stress that the concept of sufficiency economy covers both economic system and behaviour or action taken for a certain result. Our action must be supported by both cause and effect. A cause bears on its effect. When the action is by good cause, i.e. thorough thinking, the effect is the result of the action that causes it. In other words, good actions bring about good effects which are also good actions. Good means effective, beneficial, causing happiness.
The aerator, for which we were awarded recognition in Belgium, was based on simple wisdom. It can be used anywhere in the world due to its simple design. That's the merit for which the award was granted. His Majesty has done everything in the national interest, as we all know. So, we have to bear in mind that whatever he assigns is for the common good, which in turn is meant for our benefits. Another instance of innovation and key component of national development lies in the Royal Development Study Centres, 6 in number, which are located in different parts of the country.
Although a small country relying mainly on agriculture as the base of its economy, Thailand is quite varied geographically and in terms of climate, applying in different regions. There used to be a lack of in-depth and systematic development studies in this regard. The change came with the launch of the Royal Development Study Centres in various parts of the country. Systematic development studies which correspond with the actual geographical, climatic and demographic conditions applying in each locality could then get off the ground.
You might be wondering if in-depth studies were also carried out by the government sector. I can tell you that was not the case. The government sector conducted general studies, be they on plants, animals, fishery or others.
Each Royal Development Study Centre represents a geographical model for development work in that particular region, with its own characteristics when studies on integrated agricultural development are conducted. After successful experimentation, demonstrations of the results of successful studies and experiments are organized for the people. Thus, the center serves as a natural living museum for them, and thereby ensures that what they see and learn can effectively be applied to attain maximum benefits.
His Majesty's innovations developed the whole bureaucratic system, the institution too. His point of view regarding sciences, natural science in particular, was that nothing would be effective without hands-on experience or training. Without it, what you do cannot be used.
The 6 Royal Development Study Centres in 6 different localities are varied topographically and climatically, but have one thing in common, namely all of them had experienced one or more problems which nearly put them in a state of degradation. The site of today's Huai Hong Krai Royal Development Study Centre used to be degraded forest, where topsoil was so eroded that only gravels remained. The Royal-initiated development study gave rise to methods for the development of degraded forest as watershed sources, using small check dams to preserve moisture in hilly areas. The royal methods to rehabilitate the forest and preserve topsoil have attracted the attention of foreigners whose countries are faced with similar problems.
But not the container.
The first to adopt the king's methodology in Cham Luang was a Karen Hill tribe woman who came to observe activities at the centre. I can't imagine why housewives who came did take the actions, while the men only sat tight and laughed. At any rate, when they saw the result, i.e. that water could really be stored, they all joined in. So, beneficial effect was achieved as a result of united efforts in the village.
Successful development work there is testimony to the royal concept of 3 forests, 4 benefits, reforestation, which involves planting of timber trees, fruit trees and trees for firewood. Growing the 3-type forests yields not only 3, but altogether 4 benefits for the people. The 4th lies in the sustained conservation of soil and watersheds.
Within the centre's 8,500 rye grounds, there is no slash-and-burn farming. The local people are allowed to enter the site to freely pick a variety of mushrooms and ants' eggs, among others, on condition that what they pick must be declared for statistics' sake. According to our calculation, what each person picks is worth approximately 300,000 to 400,000 baht annually.
The present site of Bupan Royal Development Study Centre in Sakon Nakhon Province leaves no trace that it was once badly degraded. Sparse forest where the soil was sandy with high saline content, unsuitable for cropping. Based on His Majesty's suggestion to use vetiver grass as a preventative measure against soil degradation and erosion, the forest in Bupan is now lush and green again.
Our effort was to introduce people's participation in growing and conserving the forest, which did not require a budgetary increase. Instead, we managed to save due to the decreasing number of officials. The money saved was utilised to campaign for increased people's participation. The objective has been met to a certain extent.
The Khao Hin Son Royal Development Study Centre in Chachoengsao Province and Huai Sai Royal Development Study Centre in Phetchaburi Province used to face the topsoil degradation problem caused by the use of chemicals in pineapple farms. The degradation has been so serious that the soil became hard and compacted, and the arid land as barren as a desert. Today, they have become models of success as regards the return of soil fertility through check dams at water sources, compost and vetiver grass to prevent soil erosion and forest fire by the Royal-initiated wet forest theory.
The centre's three-faceted activity comprises degraded forest rehabilitation, return of natural equilibrium, and upgrading of the quality of life. Not all the people, but many groups of them have so far participated or indicated their willingness to do so. Our activities are in line with His Majesty's guidance that full support be rendered to the groups who are willing to join up. If results, those reluctant ones would follow suit in no time.
The Pekan Tong Royal Development Study Centre conducted experimentation on soil rehabilitation based on His Majesty's tricking the soil theory. The Royal innovative approach constituted a new chapter of soil improvement methodologies to remedy the non-cultivability problem in swamp lands and in the face of strongly acidic soil. Thus, more than 200,000 rye of land in Narathiwat have been rehabilitated for successful cultivation.
In essence, every established mode of operation must be applicable and effective. In other words, the technologies must be acceptable, something simple so that the local people can operate them on their own.
Through the Kung Kraben Bay Royal Development Study Centre in Chantaburi Province, models of coastal environment development, which includes preservation of mangrove forests and promotion of coastal fisheries, have been established. It is worth noting that the site selection process for this centre slightly differed from that of others, in that His Majesty pinpointed it from the map.
We were astonished visiting the site. His Majesty's sagacity was amazing. Why hadn't I been aware of the place which was directly in my scope of responsibility? You see, one side of the bay is open sea with its long, beautiful curving shore, but the other side is almost a lagoon. Thus, the location is feasible for studies on both open sea and lagoon, along with mangrove forests.
The 6 Royal Development Study Centres not only established models of success as regards methodologies to eliminate the problems prevailing at the initial phase of the projects. They have all continued their development missions, suitable to a variety of local geographical conditions in all regions of the country, as reflected in His Majesty's address. Development study centres are centres bringing officials from all agricultural, social and education extension fields together. This means that the people who need to learn techniques in all fields can come and see. For the officials who are there to render assistance to the people, these centres should serve to bring them together. Thus, the service is twofold. In the final analysis, it is the people who are going to ultimately benefit.
The centre is fully equipped for them, whether their problems are related to fishery, plantation, rice farming, livestock, etc. They can all come and seek consultations here. Or if someone has basic health problems, which can be remedied using medicinal herbs, he can also come to us, but a serious case requiring surgery must be referred to a hospital. The philosophy among us who work in these royal-initiated projects is that we are working for His Majesty's sake. But for whom is He working? It is all for the people's sake. So, if we truly understand this, we are obliged to work for the common good.
His Majesty pointed out that one of the main objectives of the Royal Development Study Centres was to be places where government agencies involved with the lives of the people and every aspect of development can come to exchange ideas and jointly coordinate their services. Achievements of these centres, therefore, constitute concrete examples of activities by people who uphold the virtue of unity in working for the development of the country.
They are instances of working jointly and in a complementary manner on the part of the government agencies involved in the people's well-being. Besides, their joint office is at this one-stop service centre.
Prior to the start of the development phase, it is essential that the Royal Development Study Centres conduct studies, tests and experiments.
As regards experimenting and developing, His Majesty's guideline is to follow a well-laid-out, systematic, step-by-step approach and adhere to the sufficiency principle. In conducting a study, His Majesty always reminds us that the outcome is two-faceted. Either we succeed or we fail. Mostly, though, reference is made to the success. His Majesty disagrees with this practice, saying both success and failure must be referred to. In the case of a failure, he expects to see a notation or memorandum stating the entire process in detail, as well as explaining why the outcome of a study or research was in the negative for future reference.
These Royal Development Study Centres are referred to by His Majesty as living natural museums. As such, they represent an innovation for development study, research and experiment never seen anywhere else in the world. Their innovative achievements are reflective of each locality's potential and take into consideration the geographical and social conditions applying there. The methodical development process has proved beneficial and effectively applicable.
Her Royal Highness Princess Maha Chakri Sirintorn once told us about her experience with the people. Given hens of local breed, they happily raised them, and the eggs from the hens were consumed in the families. But when selected laying hens were given, they sold all the eggs, so the children suffered from malnutrition. The lesson for us is to check the degree of readiness at the receiving end.
เด็กที่ได้กินไข่เนี่ยไม่ได้กินไข่ฉะนั้นจะต้องดูว่าเกษตรกรอันนี้เขามีความพร้อมหรือไม่
Work principle at these centres, therefore, revolves around establishing the equilibrium and harmony between advanced technology, folk wisdom and people's intelligence at the national level, while adhering to the royal-initiated theory of sustained development through self-reliance approach.
Because there are varied types of people, even in times of difficulty, it is not easy to render assistance to some of them, win their trust or motivate them to participate in projects. His Majesty has to work so hard trying to find the appropriate approach and theory. There have been instances where high-tech approach proved unacceptable to them, while with the absence of technology, no problem could be solved.
Records show that prior to the establishment of the 6 Royal Development Study Centres, study and experimentation had been carried out under the auspices of Royal Chitlada projects, where experiment stations for forestry, basic and technological agricultural development, fishery, livestock development, water management, alternative energy and fully integrated agricultural industry occupy part of the Royal Chitlada Villa grounds.
ทรงมองปัญหาที่จะเกิดเนี่ยนะฮะในอนาคตเนี่ย
His Majesty's proactive solutions are for problems that may occur in the next 3 decades or more. Mind you, it also took no less than 2 to 3 decades before his inventions were generally accepted.
ไม่ต่ำกว่า20 ปี 30 ปี
The core principle of sufficiency economy lies in knowing the right step to take. Accelerated action or result is not based on sufficiency economy, but too fast or too slow a pace does not reflect the sufficiency approach either. One must aim at progress. Rapid progress is all right as long as there is progress whereby no one is adversely affected. That's sufficiency.
I would not know how to describe it, really. I mean, His Majesty knows everything better than any of us. It's like he already has the answer in mind, But instead of telling in detail, he hints on some parts and leaves out the rest. Thus, we have to do our own thinking, trying to find a solution to the quiz he gave.
นอกจากความเชื่อมั่นศรัทธา
Aside from faith, His Majesty would say one needs to also understand what is being undertaken, both technically and otherwise.
วิชาการทั้งทุกด้านนะต้องเข้าใจ
Thanks to His Majesty's innovations, patience in the face of disagreement or dispute, Royal initiated integration of systematic study, research and experimentation, and gradual solution, which is in harmony with the true concept of development, the Royal dedication and determination to attain national self-reliance, and His granting the opportunity for the human resources to exercise their full potential. The effectiveness of sufficiency economy is becoming more and more evident with time, although it may take decades more for the world to fully realize its impact.
At the time, His Majesty introduced sufficiency economy and its vital role in the context of national development. I am sure many people were completely at sea as to how the principle could be applied to the field of information technology, or how it could encourage innovation. What His Majesty has demonstrated to this day must have provided the best answer.